this is Brendan from Watto Training, and in this tutorial we take a look at the TLIM0018, develop low-risk heavy vehicle driving behaviours in others. This unit involves the skills and knowledge required to develop low-risk heavy vehicle driving behaviours in others. It includes demonstrating applicable low-risk heavy vehicle driving rules, regulations and strategies to drivers, delivering training on low-risk heavy vehicle driving principles, and monitoring and maintaining low-risk heavy vehicle driving behaviours of drivers. Let's take a look at some delivery strategies for heavy vehicle training. The first thing is plan your training and plan your circuits. Number 2, relate driving skills, road rules, etc. to the real world / your job role. And number 3, deliver training with purpose and passion. And number 4, have a learner-centered focus. A learner-centered approach views learners as active agents. They bring their own knowledge, past experiences, education, and ideas, and this impacts how they take on board new information and learn. And number 5, reinforce with repetition and feedback. Let's take a look at the instructional skills for heavy vehicle training. Keep it simple and focus on what matters. Be concise. Be clear. Break the information down into bite-sized pieces. Focus on deliberate practice, quality feedback and encouragement. What is deliberate practice? Defined by the psychologists Anders Ericsson and colleagues, deliberate practice is the individualized training activities specially designed by a coach or teacher to improve specific aspects of an individual's performance through repetition and successive refinement. Here we have the deliberate practice roadmap. And as I'm speaking, just have a little look at the flowchart and consider how you can utilize this in your training situation. Popular law tells us that genius is born, not made. Scientific research, on the other hand, reveals that true expertise is mainly the product of years of intense practice and dedicated coaching. Ordinary practice is not enough. To reach elite levels of performance, you need to constantly push yourself beyond your abilities and comfort level. Such discipline is the key to becoming an expert in all domains, including management and leadership. Open-ended questions and closed-ended questions are critical questioning techniques that are used by trainers. Open-ended questions allow for wider responses, and closed-ended questions have specific responses in mind. What is assessment? Assessment is the process of collecting evidence and making judgments on whether competency has been achieved to confirm that an individual can perform to the standard required in the workplace as specified in a training package and is conducted in accordance with the principles of assessment and the rules of evidence. What is competency? Competency is the consistent application of knowledge and skill to the standard of the performance required in the workplace. It embodies the ability to transfer and apply skills and knowledge to new situations and environments. Remember the principles of assessment. Fairness. Consider the learner's needs. Flexibility. Use a range of assessment methods. Validity. Assess to the criteria. Reliability. Consistency among the assessors. Let's also take a look at the rules of evidence. Validity. Does the learner have the skills and knowledge as described in the unit of competency? Sufficiency. Have we collected enough quality evidence? Authenticity. Is the assessment the learner's own work? And currency. Is the assessment evidence up to date? Set goals for your learners. One way to do that is to set what are called SMART goals. S means specific about the goal that you're trying to set. M, make the goal measurable, not miserable, measurable so you can continually monitor progress. A, choose something that is achievable. R, be realistic when setting the goal. And T, make the goal time bound. For example, I want to obtain my HR, that means heavy rigid, unrestricted driver's license by whatever date. I will have 12 one-hour lessons with ABCD driving school once a week, every Saturday morning between now and the said date, and book my test on such and such a date at Harristown TMR. TMR stands for Transport Main Roads. Feedback tips for heavy vehicle trainers. Keep it timely. Feedback straight after the training session will be more powerful than feedback that comes months after the event. Be specific. Really be clear to the learner about what specific aspects they're doing well and what aspects they need to work on. Praise efforts, not talents. Don't be mean and or nasty. Your learners are not your punching bag. Feedback can be at various stages of the training program. You don't always have to wait till the end. Focus on improvement strategies. You may need to assist the learner in finding ways that they can improve their performance. Encourage the learner to reflect on their performance. Help them to take ownership over their own performance, and they can be involved in the goal setting process as they go forward. And feedback will help motivate the learner, especially if they feel like they're progressing in the right direction.
Trainer tips continued. Take pride in what you do. Taking pride in your work means that you feel satisfied with your contributions to your job. People who take pride in their work value their own efforts to make a contribution and provide quality service. Talk the talk and walk the walk. If you say that someone talks the talk but does not walk the walk, you mean that they do not act in a way that agrees with the things that they say. Be a role model. A role model is a person looked to by others as an example to be imitated. These people can inspire others to perform better work or develop particular skills. Choose your words carefully. Words can inspire and words can destroy. Choose yours well. Robin Sharma. Let's take a look at one of the important techniques for developing low-risk drivers, and that's the commentary drive. What is a commentary drive? A commentary drive is where you describe in words what you are observing in the road environment and how you are responding to mitigate changes on the road. A large part of a commentary drive is identifying hazards and describing your response to them. Spotting a hazard in time to take suitable evasive action and avoid a crash is an essential part of safe driving. A hazard can be any possible source of danger on or near the road that could lead to a crash, and it can come from any direction. It could be a child chasing a ball onto the road, parked car door opening, vehicle merging into your lane or stopping suddenly in front of you, slippery road surface after rain. Prioritize hazards. When you conduct your commentary drive, apply the concept of a driving plan. A driving plan will allow you to anticipate hazards, order hazards in importance, and decide on what action to take. Don't compromise on safety. There is one thing that you should never compromise on, and that is the health and safety of yourself, your employees, and other users of your site. Nobody should ever be injured, become ill, or die because someone, somewhere, was willing to compromise on their well-being. Watch your learner closely. Sometimes people are on their phone or talking to someone else when, say, for example, the learner trips over whilst hooking up a trailer on a semi-trailer or something like that. Try not to turn your back on the traffic. Make sure your learner enters and exits the vehicle correctly using the 3 points of contact. Read instructions and warning labels. Make sure your driver is set up correctly in the driver's seat. This includes the seat belt, the steering wheel, and also the mirrors. There we've got our 3 different mirrors. We've got the spotter mirror up the top, then the side mirror, and then down below on the bottom mirror. Use positive body language. Maintain good eye contact, be engaged, and apply active listening. Nodding or tilting the head to the side acknowledges the other person. An upright and open posture shows friendliness and openness. Smiling at someone shows that you are friendly, open, approachable, and likable. And just quickly, some negative body language postures to be wary of. Crossing the arms can often be seen as defensive. Tapping fingers can show impatience or boredom. And eye contact or staring at someone can be confronting, but also avoiding eye contact can also be a negative gesture. Frowning is another one as well, which comes across as negative. Okay, this is a plan view of a truck cab, and looking down we can see the learner in the driver's seat and the trainer in the left seat. We've got the left and right mirrors and also the direction of travel. The dot points on the bottom right outline some of the checks that the trainer would do. So the trainer would be watching the road up ahead, looking out for hazards, etc. Also, they'd be checking the mirrors. Sometimes as a trainer you can't see due to the angle of a mirror, but some trainers put spotter mirrors on specifically for their vision. Watch the driver as well, make sure that they are looking in the correct place at the correct time. Give instructions and directions in a clear and concise voice to the driver, and record the driver's performance and give them quality feedback. Avoid ums and ahs as much as possible. Sometimes people will record themselves and review their speaking performance so that they can start to work on being clear and concise with their communication. Use the learner's name. One of the benefits of using the learner's name is that it creates a culture of respect, recognition, and consideration for that person as a human being, as a person active in the learning process. And that's really important because what we're trying to do is to build competence and confidence in our learners. Get your priorities in order. Can the learner conduct a pre-start check? Can they use 3 points of contact? Can the learners perform the cabin drill? Can the learner identify and operate controls? Can the learner start and stop the vehicle correctly? Can the learner move off and stop safely? Can the learner maintain a safe road position and following distance? Can the learner take a left/right corner? Can the learner maintain a safe speed? It's important to prepare the learner for training and assessment. How do we do this? What do they need to know? Inform them about training and assessment, such as when, where, the parameters and expectations, any conditions that might apply, who is involved in the process, the resources that will be used, for example, the vehicle, the format, e.g. an observation checklist, a written knowledge assessment, process of appeals. In any training venture, it is critical to manage expectations. The trainer must manage their expectations, and the learner must manage their expectations as well. In the top diagram, we can see a representation of our plan, a clear path for the blue car to go from point A to point B. But in reality, the diagram below is more what the learning journey may represent, with peaks and troughs and other challenges along the way. In the case of uncertainty, expectation is what is considered to be most likely to happen. An expectation, which is a belief that is centered on the future may or may not be realistic. A less advantageous result gives rise to the emotion of disappointment.
Stay calm. Remember to smell the flowers and blow out the candles. So as you breathe in, smell the flowers, and as you blow out the candles. Breathing exercises will help you keep calm and can also be used with your learners to help them keep calm as well.
Verbalize your actions. This is done through what is known as self-talk. Self-talk refers to our inner dialogue consisting of statements we say to ourselves, either in our mind or out aloud. Most of us use self-talk in our lives, like giving ourselves a pep talk before a job interview or a date. This practice helps us appraise and regulate our thoughts and emotions and can help reduce stress and anxiety in certain situations. Self-talk can direct your attention to the relevant actions that you must execute to improve the quality of your movement or performance. This is thought to be more beneficial for sports requiring fine motor control, such as tennis, rather than gross motor control, such as running. Give clear, concise directions. These can be simple or they can be complex. Here are some examples of simple directions a trainer can give to a driver. At the first street, turn left, please. At the end of the road, turn right, please. Please take the second street on the left. At the third set of traffic lights along this road, please turn right. Be wary of using the term next. It confuses some people. Here's what would be considered a more complex instruction. In this case, we're looking at car B, the orange car. Now the instruction is, do not follow this road around to the left. When it is safe, please proceed straight ahead. So sometimes it's necessary to give directions to applicants where there is ambiguity over which way to go. This sometimes occurs at T intersections where the main road is marked with a center line continuing around to the left, or in some cases to the right, and the intersection has changed priorities with some type of control operating, for example, a give way or a stop sign.
Roundabouts. Example 1. At the roundabout, take the second exit, please. Repeat if necessary to avoid confusion. Time your instructions. Don't give them too early, don't give them too late.
Roundabouts. Example 2. At the roundabout ahead, make a right turn, please, taking the third exit following the signs to Morningside. Repeat, hand signal can assist, but we'll do more on hand signals later.
Instructions for a hill start maneuver. I'd like you to do a hill start ahead. Would you please stop parallel to the curb near, indicate a location. Thank you. Please drive off when you're ready.
Utilize hand signals. Hand signals are readily available but are often an overlooked resource for communicating with learners.
Straight ahead. Stop. Reverse. Left, right, second left, U-turn, stop, slow down,
scan. Trainer tips continued. Carefully consider the learning styles of your students. Visual learners. Visual learners often respond to charts, maps, graphs, diagrams, and more. Make sure your learner can see in such cases. For example, if you're conducting a pre-start check, make sure they can see what you're doing. Auditory learners. Auditory learners learn best when information is heard or spoken. Some of the characteristics of auditory learners include that they like to talk things through. Often they will talk to themselves while performing tasks, and they often prefer spoken directions over written directions. Reading/writing preference. These learners have a preference for reading and/or writing information to be presented using words. Some of the characteristics of such students include that they learn best when reading and/or taking notes. Often they like to read out aloud, and they often learn by rereading their notes as well. They tend to remember information that they read or write down, and they may use other sources such as Google and other materials to assist them with their learning progress. Kinesthetic learners. These are the hands-on learners. Kinesthetic learners learn best when they can use tactile, that is the sense of touch, experiences and carry out a physical activity to practice applying new information. Examples of applications for various learning styles. Using diagrams, for example, reversing a heavy vehicle. Drawing sketches, in this case, looking at a combination turn. Use a tablet to assist the learner. Use models such as the rollover models for Vic Roads. Use YouTube, Resource Hub and Banks. Use an audiobook or voice file. Act out, build scenarios and role play. Let's take a moment to reflect on some of the key adult learning principles. The first one, tap into the life experiences of your adult learners. Also, adults like to focus on achieving goals. Adults need to know how the information that they're learning is relevant to them. Adults are practical, meaning they like hands-on activities. Adults are responsive to mentorship, someone that can support them in their learning journey. Adults like to have input into how they learn, so communicate with your learner and tap into their maturity as well with their learning progression. Let's take a moment to take a look at some of the areas that various trainers operate in and some of the factors that they need to take into consideration when they conduct their training. And the first one we'd like to look at is rural roads. Rural road crashes contribute substantially to the overall road toll in Australia, accounting for approximately 2/3 of all fatal road crashes. So this needs to be at the forefront of the trainer's mind in these areas. One of the first strategies that a trainer can use in rural areas is to make sure that they themselves are aware of all roadside signals and road markings to collect the information about the area they're training in, as well as any road conditions, and that they pass this on to their driver as well, so that they themselves are also looking and taking in the information as well. Looking a little closer into the characteristics of rural road crashes, most casualty crashes occur during daylight hours, particularly 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. So trainers, be wary of any training that you do after lunch into the early evening. And also, more occur on a Saturday or a Sunday than any other days of the week. So something to be wary of there. We've also got to consider that in rural areas that people are traveling regularly at higher speeds. So the faster you go, the harder you hit, unfortunately. So this can also greatly increase the risk of fatality or serious injury in the event of a crash. Most rural crashes involve local residents, with only a very small proportion of crashes attributable to international or interstate visitors. Most rural crashes are single vehicle crashes, particularly run-off road crashes. Factors consistently associated with rural road crashes include human factors and environmental factors. Let's take a look at some of the human factors that have an impact. Alcohol, distraction, fatigue, seatbelt use, speed, and age. In terms of environmental factors to be wary of, travel distances, road conditions,
higher speed limits, unsealed roads, unique hazards and unpredictability such as wildlife, and vehicle factors. Young drivers 17 to 24 years are at an elevated level of crash risk generally, but male drivers and riders aged 30 to 50 years make up the majority of serious rural road crash casualties. Rural bravado, for example, being a hero amongst young males, has been found in some research. The road crash fatality rate per population is over 3 times in rural areas than in major cities. For young men aged 20 to 24, it is nearly 4 times higher. Trainer tips continued. Use personal account. Teach in stories, but don't be indulgent and boring. Take these steps to promote a positive safety culture in your workplace. Conduct a thorough workplace risk assessment. Thoroughly investigate all incidents and near misses and examine the root cause. Communicate all changes in equipment and work processes to workers. Encourage workers to report health and safety concerns. Respond promptly to all health and safety issues you become aware of. Measure and support any changes required. Implement positive changes in values and attitudes towards workplace health and safety. Develop a safety leadership culture at all levels of the business and ensure all leaders of the business uphold the principles of a positive safety culture. Make health and safety of primary importance when inducting new workers into the workplace. For example, include the health and safety policy in induction materials. Make health and safety part of all workplace communications, and promote and attend safety training sessions. When training someone, it's important to be wary of common crash types. That way, you can operate in a manner which lowers the risk of such crashes. Crash type number 1, rear end collisions. Crash type number 2, side-on collisions. Crash type number 3, head-on crashes. Crash type number 4, off-path straight crashes. Crash type number 5, crashes on curves and bends. Instructional techniques continued. Let's take a look at a simple hazard recognition and response model that learners can use to deal with hazards on the road. Step number 1, scan the road environment ahead. If we look up ahead and identify hazards early, we will give ourselves time and space to respond. So step 1 is scan ahead. Step 2 is to recognize the difference between potential hazards and hazards that require you to respond. This only happens if we're paying attention to what's happening as we scan the road environment around our vehicle. Step 3 is our response. Sometimes we will need to brake heavily and stop for an immediate threat. Other times we may have more time and space to respond. The key is recognizing the hazard early to help us to make a well-informed decision. Let's take a look at the hazard recognition and decision-making process in action. So the scenario that we're looking at the moment is a situation in Toowoomba. We've got a green light, we've got a yellow and black warning sign telling us that there's a low clearance bridge ahead at 3.7 meters high and that it's a 60 kilometer per hour speed zone. At this point in time, the driver has an opportunity to assess that information if they're not aware of what the local situation is, and they have the opportunity, as per the left of screen, to take a detour for high vehicles. So it relies on the driver to be scanning and processing that information, particularly if they don't know the area, e.g. they're not a local. So here's our step 2. Look well ahead when driving your vehicle. Steer the vehicle using your lower fringe vision. So we've got warning signs advising the driver that there could be trucks on this path and that we should slow the vehicle down to
20 k's per hour as we go around to the right, and we've also got some directional signs up ahead. And if you look just above the silver vehicle, you can see a mirror which has been placed to assist drivers with vision on that tight bend to the right. So as we come down, we can see the directional markers, we can see the mirror, and we can see double continuous center lines as well in the bottom right of screen. Then we come down to the actual situation, which is the low clearance sign of 3.7 meters. So this would be a situation where a driver could get caught out if they're not scanning ahead, recognizing the hazards, and giving themselves time and space to respond. Okay, so it's great to have a formula, but it relies on the driver knowing the road rules and their application. Don't take anything for granted out on the road. Speed limits. It's critical that we maintain the correct and safe speed on the road. What are the risks of speeding? Speeding increases your chance of having a crash and increases the risk of serious injury or death if you do crash. The risk of a death or injury crash in an urban 60 km/h speed zone increases rapidly, even with relatively small increases in speed. The casualty crash risk at 65 km/h is about twice the risk at 60 km/h. At 70 km/h, the casualty crash risk is more than 4 times the risk at 60 km/h. So we can see the compounding effect as the speed increases and the relative risk compared to 60 km/h. In the top part of the diagram, we can see that if we double the vehicle weight, we double the stopping distance. So this is a critical factor when you've got a load on a heavy vehicle. And if we look at the diagram below, if we double the vehicle speed, as we know from the last slide, we could quadruple your stopping distance. If we look at this table, we can see that as the vehicle speed increases and we compare the stopping distance between a car and a truck, that the faster we are going when we brake, the truck takes a lot longer to stop as opposed to a car. We can't impart to our learners the attitude that driving a truck or heavy vehicle such as a bus is the same as driving a car. They're bigger vehicles, they have more weight, and they take much longer to stop and a greater distance. This diagram shows us the effect of speed on cornering forces. The effect of speed on the cornering ability, braking distance, and impact forces acting on a vehicle increase as the speed increases. Cornering forces don't just double when the vehicle speed doubles, they increase by 4 times. This effect is highlighted in the following diagram. So if we look at 30 km/h and then double the speed to 60 km/h, which is in the middle, we can see that the factor has gone up by 4. But if we look at 30 km/h on the far left and then multiply that by a factor of 3, that is 90 km/h on the far right, that the cornering forces have gone up by 9 times. So the faster your vehicle is going around a corner, the greater the forces are acting on the car on a compounding rate. Okay, now let's take a look at the importance of reading warning signs in relation to these cornering forces. This sign warns that trucks may tip over when driving around the curve of a road or when making a turn. The sign may show the recommended speed limit for the heavy vehicles to drive. Teach the learners to apply what is known as the system of vehicle control. As we take a look at the diagram, we can see the heavy vehicle taking a right turn at a T section. So again, keeping in the forefront of our minds that we do not want the vehicle to roll over. We want to take that corner in control. So working from our step-by-step process. Step 1, identify the hazard. That is the T section. Step 2, check your mirrors. What's happening around me? Step 3, indicate that the intention of turning right. Step 4, slow the vehicle down. Brake. Step 5, gear down and check the mirrors. Step 6, check for clarity on the T section. Is it clear to proceed? Take evasive action if required. After passing the hazard, resume to the appropriate speed. By applying the system of vehicle control, a learner should always be in the correct road position, in the correct gear, and at the correct speed. Teach your learners to safely manage their space. Teach your learners to safely manage other road users. Teach learners to manage their mirror checks and blind spots. The blind spot diagram in yellow shade shows the blind spots are located immediately in front of the truck, beside the truck's driver's door on the passenger side, which runs the length of the truck and extends out 3 lanes directly behind the truck. Source TMR. Teach your learners to safely manage their following distance. A technique of defensive driving is to create a buffer zone around your vehicle, known as a crash avoidance space. This is where you adjust your road position and speed to ensure you have your own space on the road, with time to react if something dangerous happens. A third of all road vehicle accidents in Australia involve nose-to-tail collisions caused by tailgating or driving too close to the car ahead. It's important to keep a minimum 3-second distance between you and the car ahead so you have time to brake safely if you need to. Now, just to clarify, in Queensland we talk about a 2-second gap, New South Wales a 3-second gap. I would encourage any trainers to err on the side of a 3-second gap. That way they, as the trainer, have time to respond to the situation if there's any trouble. Further, if the weather is poor, that should be opened up even more so that there's plenty of time to stop in poor conditions. You really want to protect that crash avoidance zone. When we're doing car driver instruction with learners, professional trainers have dual controls on the left side of the vehicle which assist them to stop. But in heavy vehicles, it's very rare to have dual controls on the left side. All you've got is your vocal cords. It's paramount to open up that crash avoidance space early and clearly so that the learner leaves a suitable gap, and that way creates a response time. Having time to make decisions when driving can be the difference between responding safely or having a crash. On average, reaction time takes between 150 and 300 milliseconds. If that sounds like a long time, think about how much has to happen for you to react. Okay, so let's just take a look here. Time and space are precious for the driver, for the trainer, and for others. Safe driving. Thanks for watching. This has been Brendan from Watto Training.